Hey everybody, welcome to Season 4, Episode 7 of the Hard Truth Inside the Football Industry podcast with me, Philip Ideson, and Darragh and Phil, Chairman and co-owner of Peterborough United, and once again it's match day. So I wonder what happened the last time we recorded on match day.
No superstitions. We said this in the past. I'd never have recorded on match days. I don't care. We're moving off OCD superstition stuff. So yeah, it's been an okay week. I think I forget who we beat last week. We beat 10-man Cheltenham. Yeah, battered them 10 men. Disappointing they went down to 10 men. I actually don't enjoy watching us play 10 men because we just had it with Bolton. I think as a team, one of our strengths is out wide, counter-attack, pace, whatever. When you play teams with 10 men, they're already a little bit worried about our attacks. So now all of a sudden it's the low block, it's 10 behind the ball, it becomes more difficult. But yeah, we had a good performance last week against Cheltenham. For an hour, it was a bit frustrating. We couldn't break them down. You're thinking, shit, I think, I'm not saying a young team, but sometimes with a team like ours at the moment there's probably a certain amount of apprehension, a little bit of fear, which I would say to these players, you've nothing to be fearful of. Like, you've nothing to be fearful of. You're in your low 20s. Like, this game should be just enjoyed. Go and enjoy what you're doing. Do you know what I mean? And I think if you do that as young people, great things can happen. And sometimes it's the fear of failure. So you got to try and take that fear away from them and go, what are you fearing? People lose football games. People don't play well. Shit happens. You're going to wake up the next day. You're going to play a game again in 3 days' time. And it's taking that out of people's minds and reminding a lot of them that 7 of them played in like big playoff games at the end of last season. Here. Yeah, they won like 7, 8 out of the last 10 games last year. They battered Sheffield Wednesday. Yes, they lost the second leg, but there's a lot of good things those young people have done. So don't be fearful of anything.
Do you think the players sometimes, or younger players sometimes, have imposter syndrome? Like, what am I doing? Do I deserve to be here? Questioning their confidence. They feel like they got lucky.
It's a great question. I think a lot of people have imposter syndrome. It's funny. I never did. I think I was too egotistical and too arrogant when I was in my young 20s. I always felt I was him. Yeah. I never was like, oh, I shouldn't be this person. I shouldn't be having these nice things. I just always rated myself. And I think you're right. Going through college application processes and homecoming the last 7 days and dealing with young people's drama and my 3 teenagers and this generation, how girls and boys are with each other. I just think the world, Phil, is so fucking different to how we saw it when we grew up and the revolution of social media, how it's affected this young generation. And that includes 20 and 21-year-olds, because that's this generation I'm talking about. So I do think there will be imposter syndrome. But I also think, I watch our players just keep trying to do the right things. I always said, if you keep doing the same things, the right things, as long as they're the right things, everything will go to plan. We spoke about business before we came in the air.
Yeah.
Keep doing what you're doing. If the right things you're doing will lead to the right results. Whether it's in life, whether it's in sports or whatever. And lots of statistics have come up over the last couple of weeks about us. And I saw another one yesterday about XG and about most entries into the attacking third of the opposition. Where all those metrics are like off the charts, doing the right things. Like, if those metrics are there, keep doing it. Like, for example, I think between Cheltenham game and the Bolton game, we had 58 shots on goal. I think we had something like 67 crosses. Mm-hmm. They're all the right things you try and do when you win a football game. You want, yes, possession's great, but it's a bit of a false stat. But more importantly, final third entries. How many shots you have on goal? How many crosses are you putting in the opponent's box? If all those things are in the top echelons of the league you're playing in, trust me, that's going to win you things you want to win. It's going to get you to places.
You said about possession could be a bit of a false or a, not necessarily determinant about how you play. Is that the same for passes as well?
Yeah, I think so, because you could have 19 out of 19 passes, but basically you've passed to your mate to the right 5 yards away. So are they progressive passes? Are they progressive runs? You have to dig deeper into statistics. Passing statistics can be an oxymoron. So you've got to look further than that and go, right. So, for example, let's say a Ronnie. Ronnie will always have a high pass percentage threshold, like 90-odd% plus, because he's an unbelievable passing centre back. But so then you dig deeper and go, how many of those passes were to the right, to the left? With Ronnie, not a lot. A lot of his passes would be through midfield, would be out to the wide to the full backs. They're the passes that matter. They're the passes you want. You could get a number 10 whose passing stats are unbelievable, but he hasn't made a goal. So what does that tell you about the number 10? He's taking the ball, but he's going the other way instead of that way. He's not really eyes on. Then you'll have someone whose passing stats mightn't be great, but if you dig deeper, what they are is creating goals, because they're basically always looking for that impossible pass, that impossible assist or whatever. So, yeah, sometimes you can get lost in those. The real stats for me are, how many times did you go in the opponent's final third in their box? How many crosses did you put in the box for the GOAT of League One goal scorers, Clark Harris, to try and get in the end of? How many expected this new XG? So we have the number 1 XG in League One. So that tells me we're expected to score, and if we'd done that, we'd be top of the league. So you get frustrated, and Cheltenham and even Bolton on Saturday. Bolton went down to 10 men, but before that, we were the better team. We should have been comfortably up by half time. We scored, then they could score a minute later. So we have to cut out those kind of errors. But we went there and took the game to them. Bolton are a very good squad, very good team, favourites to go up. I felt we went there with the right game plan. We were on the front foot. We were offensive. We were aggressive. We were attacking. I think our wide players were hurting them. And I do think, funny as it sounds, with 11v11, I think we win the game.
Yeah,
I do. It was a big pitch, the way we were playing. And just they sat in. And then there's the threat of Bolton are so good on the attack. They kept 2 strikers on, fair play to the manager, even with 10 men. But we dominated the second half. But we just didn't create enough. We might have had 15 shots, but their goalie didn't do a lot. So that's on us to do better in those areas. So
break them down.
Right, that will come. That will come. Like I said, it's repetition. You keep doing the right things, it will come. So, and it's not to lose faith in that process either. It's not my daughter always slagging off, trust the process. It's just keep doing the things you want to do, the plan in place, and all those things will come off. So there's a lot of positives going on. Ricky came back from injury quicker. He's been brilliant the last couple of games. Could have had his ankle broken on Saturday. You know what I mean? With a bad red card. I think their manager said it was yellow. I don't know what game he was watching, but even their fans watching the footage back will tell you it was an awful challenge.
Henry told me it was a pretty nasty challenge.
It was terrible, and yeah, but look, that happens in games. I'm not going to have a go at the Bolton player. At the end of the day, if he doesn't make a challenge, Ricky's probably in. And I think I'd said it last week on the podcast. He's the type of player that will get red cards. It's why I want him down the middle. I think we could end up playing loads of games against 10 men because his pace is just going to cause chaos. And I think lots of defenders are going to shit themselves, panic, and do silly things. So, that's what he brings. And then he's adding to the rest of that.
Do you train playing against 10 men, breaking down 10 men?
We do train for those situations. We even play with 10 men sometimes in sessions so that it's on the other foot. So, I think it's pretty obvious what you have to do. When you're playing 10 men, I think, you have to, it's very difficult to exploit spaces because there's very little space. So, not necessarily, I think, if you can get it out wide in the right areas, then the deliveries have to be good. But they just, a lot of things weren't happening for us. We hit the post 3-4 times. There were a lot of, it was just one of them days where I think Hector could have had a hat trick from corners. He won the header 3 times with balls right on the spot and it just didn't come off. So it's one of those games, where you're just like pulling your hair out. And then it's like, we had, 7 substitutions in the second half. They had a pitch invaded, was on the pitch for 2 minutes and there was 4 minutes of injury time. Yeah. And the ref played 4 minutes. And I don't know, we had 3 minutes in the game before. I guarantee if we're losing the game, it ain't 3 minutes. I guarantee if we're winning the game,
9 minutes.
If we're winning the game, you guarantee it's 9 minutes. So I don't quite know what's going on there. I don't want to get involved. A lot of stuff with referees this season. I really thought the new guy in charge of the refs, Webb, it was going to be better. But so far, the experience probably would be the opposite. So I think they have a lot of sorting out to do. And if they've paid him big bucks, he needs to start earning it. So, but it was a good game. Bolton are a good side. There's a lot of positives, and we're also seeing injured players coming back quicker. We thought Jando was going to be lost to potentially December, January. He's flying. The Chelsea boy we signed, we're giving him a pre-season. Looking forward to seeing him in a couple of weeks. A lot of good things. And again, I'm enjoying watching what we're doing. And I get it, it's frustrating. You're not winning games you should be winning, but that doesn't last forever.
I want to go back to talking about the stats conversation. And
yes,
so, back in the day, none of these statistics were available. And so now you can get a statistic about anything that you want. You're talking about Ronnie, statistics on whether he passes it one way or passing it the other way. And who's gathering those? Is an analyst sat in the stand in real time that's tracking it, or is it?
Yeah, so you've got loads of companies now that are in the stats world, whether it be Y-Scout, whether it be Instat, whether it be someone else, and they have analysts there. They're piped into streams. There's now also software, and there's computers and there's monitors all over the pitch, and we even have our own stuff for that as well. And it will pick up your players are wearing things. It will pick up everything. Yards run. Progressive runs, negative runs, it's just complete stat mania. And sometimes you can get lost in statistics too much because everything's just statistic driven. Sometimes it's just good old fashioned hard work and playing better than the opposition and winning the game. Just like equally, you could play a team where you'll have 30 shots. I think last year MK Dons got relegated by having 40 odd shots against Burton and dominating the game. So if you look at the statistics of the game, MK Dons should have won the game 7-8-0. but Burton won the game or stopped them. So stats sometimes aren't everything. And sometimes with certain players, like I just said to you there, they can be deceiving. So yes, you look at when you sign players, if you're signing a midfielder and it's an attacking midfielder, what are his goals and his assists? That's an old-fashioned statistic that'll tell you, is that player attack-minded? Are they decent in the ball? What kind of goals do they score? If you've got a player who scored 5 world-class 25-yarders, you got a pretty good statistical grasp. That's a major part of his kind of artillery. Yeah. You know what I mean? If you got a Joe Ward who needs 10 crosses for every goal created or 7 crosses, you pretty much know what you're getting, particularly if he's 27, 28. They're not going to change. Yeah. Where stats may become difficult is if you sign players 18, 19 to 22, you know that those stats are going to evolve and things are going to get better, or they should get better. Otherwise, you're moving them on. And that's where, you can't judge a player straight away that he's got 10 goals in 11 games. That's great.
The quality of the opposition is going to vary a lot more, I'm sure, when they're younger as well.
Right. So when I have my scout watch players and we're nailed on the player, I'll always say to my scout, right, now I need you to go back and watch that player against the top 3 teams in the league they played. Do they go missing in the big games? Are they brilliant against, do they bully boy sides? Are there players who basically will you see it in the Premier League, Mo Salah scores against all the top 5 teams. Then you get another striker, couldn't hit a barn door against the 3 or 4 teams that matter, but completely dominates the Lutons and the Sheffield United. Yeah. So it's one of them, at the end of the day, look, you get what you want from stats, you move on, or you can get obsessed with stats. You've got other people like Rasmus at Southampton, Matthew at Brentford, a lot of their stuff is completely stats driven, I believe, and it works for them. Brighton probably big time as well. There was an interesting conversation. It was with Paul Barber the other day, and it was something that made sense to me. It's something we're trying to do, where he talked about they're trying to sign players before they sell the next big player. They're trying to, if you ever watch Brighton, when they sell someone, they move someone in from their B team or their under 21s or whatever, and they've been there a while. Yeah. Some of the players they've sold for loads of money, were already there for a year.
They're making these small bets, aren't they?
Yes, they were out on loan at the Brighton sister club, or they were in the 21s. So what they're trying to do basically is, because they know if they have 120 million from the Casado sale, they're having a hard time signing. They signed a replacement. I think they paid 30-odd million. That's probably 20 million more than Brighton want to pay. So that's one where they maybe didn't have the replacement. But if you go back to the left back, to the, whatever, they're doing things. And I'm trying to do the same with our 21s. I'm trying to sign gems and players. I feel we sign them, we park them in our 21s, and slowly let them evolve into the first team. Posh fans won't know this, but we have a shit hot number 10 in the 21s that I signed, and he's a talent. And there's a couple more, but just in one position alone, number 10, he's a very talented player. Now, at the moment, the 21s are getting battered every week, and we need to change that tide, because we were very good last year, but he's standing out. And the manager, I'd said to the gaffer one day, funny story from the summer, you got to watch this number 10. I don't know if the guys have told you, we had him in on trial and whatever else. The gaffer took him into training and then lost his rag that we hadn't signed him yet, and went mad at everyone in the 21s why they hadn't told him about him, And I was like, well, look, that's also partly our to blame. We're bringing him into the 21s. Yeah. You then get a look at them, and sometimes they're not ready. Like Kwame wasn't ready when we first bought him. We paid a good chunk. He was always going to be a first-team player, but we kind of parked him in the 21s. And then Joe Taylor parked him in the 21s. Joe Taylor now is on fire in League Two. It'll probably be worth a lot of money. I'm gutted we sold him and we didn't give him a fighting chance, because that was a perfect example. We paid $5,000. We put him in our 21s. He was leading goal scorer in there. Never got a chance for our first team, really. And, but that's the idea. I've got about 3 players we're going to sign in the next, probably the first week of January, that I'll slide into our 21s. I'm very excited about for next season. So that's something we're trying to do as well. We're evolving our recruitment and what we do and how we do it,
So one last question on the stats. So the stats that you get in-game, are you monitoring them in-game, or are they post-game to reflect?
In-game. The stuff we use or whatever is in-game. It's also in-game, so the manager can see stuff, so it can be reported to him and shown to him as well. I think that's really important. Sometimes you can get caught up in a game and you don't realize. You're thinking, I'll give you an example. Maybe on Saturday, if I'm being critical, I've said I wasn't going to be critical about anything or whatever, but let's say I'm being critical for 2 seconds, and Alan Swan, don't do articles about me being critical. 75% of our attacks went down Poku's side. So it was all Kwame. And Kwame was brilliant, by the way, and he's coming back to his best. But you would say there, okay, it didn't work, even though we hit the post and we had loads of whatever else. Why aren't we maybe giving a bit more out to the left? Now, the big thing there was Ricky went off after 68 minutes because he's finding his fitness. Probably hurt us. you know. But again, there wasn't as much space for him to run in behind. So do you need something else out there? You know, I think we tried it, but we didn't get the ball out there. A lot of our game went down the right. Josh Knight was taking it out, going down the right, out to PK, out to Poku. Maybe we could have flipped the switch on that and gone the other way. Maybe I'd like to see our wingers swap during games. We used to do that years ago when we had like the Boyds and the Tomlins in the team, where we just for 5 minutes flip wide players. Maybe we could do that a little bit more in games that are frustrating. Maybe just flip the wide players 5, 6, 7, 8 minutes. Give the fullbacks something else to think about. You know, so the great thing is we've got a lot of variety in our squad. We've got players you can play in all the numbers, whether it's a 6, an 8, a 10, a 9, or whatever. Probably Bar Clark Harris. Everyone else in the attacking areas could play left, right, up front, one deep, 10, you know, even someone who can slip into midfield. So we have a lot of that. Maybe we need to do that a little bit more. Maybe that will come in time. Probably playing with a target man doesn't allow us to do as much as we can, but maybe that will change. But you can't knock a target man who's like the best goal scorer in League One. So, you know, and again, he was unplayable on Saturday. So that price has gone up and up.
Yeah, he's not resting on his laurels and just waiting for the top to tick down, is he?
I said it last week, and I said it to Phil, I think, the other day on the club account. I said I said it on the club account that it pisses me off that there wasn't a queue of clubs for him, because at the end of the day, he's such a professional. I don't know if he gets an unfair reputation, an unfair like slagging or an unfair whatever else, but he's just one of them people who's good in the dressing room, he's good for a club, he always does his job, and most importantly, scores more goals than anyone. So it's kind of an odd one, but he's been a complete pro at the moment, so we're very happy with that.
And then tonight you have Mansfield in the Cup, in the League Cup, and then Bristol Rovers, ironically talking about JCH at home on Saturday. Yeah,
so a big couple of games. We'd like to do well in the Cups for a change. We'd like, you know, a long run in all the Cups. We'd like to make a few bob. It would be nice for the club. It's long overdue. Mansfield are unbelievable form, doing really well. That won't be easy. I'd imagine we'll go full strength. They'll go full strength. Bristol Rovers will be interesting on Saturday. Again, all the games that are like good games to play, Bristol Rovers are one of the, you would call them, with the recruitment they did this summer, they're definitely going to be up there. So that'll be an interesting battle. I know Barton's a very good coach. You know, he's not the kind of coach who's going to roll into town a la Leyton Orient or Cheltenham and try and just stick behind the ball and nick goals in the counter. He won't do that. So that's going to be an open game. They'll be respectful, but at the end of the day, that's going to be a game where we have to be at our best. So these are the games you want, you know, and we have to start putting little runs together. We will. But listen, so far, I think, you know, we're doing okay. We're playing well. And I think there's so much more to come. There's so much upside. It's frightening.
Yeah, and we have Middlesbrough in the
Cup. Let's talk bantams. So let's go back to Saturday, because, you know, last week you're having a fucking moan. On Saturday, obviously, you've absolutely torched Newport. It's 4-1, was it? Yeah. So Andy Cook, who we spoke about, obviously back in the side, scores a hat-trick. And your comment to that was, do we over-rely on him?
So that's not my comment, I don't think.
You put that in the notes. I was reading the notes today, and there was a note in there saying, do we...
I think that's Henry asking if we...
right. Henry's a Bolton fan, obviously. Yeah. So, yeah, I was just thinking, like, you got to take the good stuff. You know, we can't complain and moan. So talk us through the Newport game. How good was it?
You know, so what difference a week makes? Because as we said, I was moaning last week, and it was looking like I didn't know where a goal was going to come from or a win was going to come from. And then when Andy Cook was back in the team, you think probably a little early for what we'd been told was his injury. And it's amazing what happens. I think what I said to you after the game, when you go direct, play two wingers and go 4-4-2 and have somebody up front who can score.
Play to his strengths.
Yeah, and suddenly, I mean, it could have been 5 or 6 at half-time. We just completely battered them in that first half. Best half of football we've played for a long, long time.
No, brilliant. Absolutely fantastic.
At that point, game was won. You know, it was just a bit of a testimonial, I think, second half. But that first half, going direct, good interplay between the fullbacks and the wingers on both sides. Interestingly, we dropped Richie Smallwood, brought in Kevin McDonald. We were always looking to play the ball forward rather than play the back, because that's one thing.
Is Smallwood frustrating the Bradford fans? I did see a little bit of that, you know, online. And obviously, I thought he'd pissed it at that level.
Me too. And we were really excited to get him. And that's not to say that he's a bad player or anything like that. But I think that, you know, his final ball hasn't been the best. And he does always look to slow the game down.
Well, sure.
And, you know, that's perhaps what Mark Hughes wanted. And but it's not really worked, or at least not worked this season. And so there's been a couple of games where, he's captain, but he's been dropped. And so this was one of them. He was dropped to the bench. We brought in Kevin McDonald, who, I think was Wolves for a long time. And
he was there. I remember him, different class. Wasn't he Sheffield United as well, Wolves?
I'm not sure. He ended up at Exeter. He basically had a kidney transplant.
I saw that.
For a couple of years.
Great passer.
I mean, the assist for the second goal was something that, if it had been in the Championship or even higher, people would have been playing that on repeat. It was
fair enough.
Just different class. And so that's just what broke things open a little bit. Was it only takes one bit of magic and weaving a pass that you don't think anybody else is capable of for an assist that was well finished, and that made the difference. So we were all a lot happier after Saturday than we've been for the last couple of weeks.
You're up and running in a big way. Plenty of goals, good stuff.
I mean, we got to follow through on it, obviously, but it felt like what we know is there was coming together, and a large part of that is the formation change. I've talked all season about 5 at the back, 3 centre halves. They're all, unfortunately more like cloggers than they are cultured centre halves, and it just wasn't really working.
Fair enough. Far. Well, I said to you it was early days anyway, so I guess the title of this episode would be what?
Well, I think a week is a long time in football.
Oh, there you go. That's good. That's a good one as well. Yeah, exactly. Where you go from being miserable to suddenly feeling like you're on top of the world. So nailed on. And then you got Middlesbrough tonight.
We got Middlesbrough tonight, and I think they're expecting a pretty good crowd there. It's been a fiver for anybody home and away to get in.
Nice.
Middlesbrough sold out there 4,500
awesome.
quickly. So unfortunately, I'm not going to watch it. That's the only problem here is I can't.
Speaking of which, did you have a streaming issue on Saturday? Because even the VIP stream, I couldn't watch the first half of Bolton. It was patchy. So apparently our streamer who does even our VIP thing and the iFollow, there was a massive data problem. Not data, but a streaming problem.
No, I saw Phil panicking on sending out messages on Twitter about it, but we were fine.
Lucky bastards. Well, it must have been just us then, but it was the provider. I was going mad. I ended up buying the match online elsewhere, and it was still a problem. So I had 3 different sources going on, and all 3 issues. Up until the 35th minute, I'm missing loads of the game. So it was one of them things. But tonight I've got a VIP stream for our cup match. So, but obviously for you guys, your owners would have that as well. So you're not going to be able to watch it. Is it not on ESPN or anywhere like out in America?
No, I was hoping it might be on ESPN Plus, but it's not.
It's not. Right.
I'm just going to have to listen to this one, which, shows how far things have come, because when I moved to America, I'd be delighted to have the chance to listen to a game. And now I have to listen to one versus watch one. And I feel like, I don't know, you feel like, why can't they make this happen?
Well, I don't understand why. I understand domestically. Why can't they sell international rights to streaming all those games?
Mm-hmm.
So if you've done a deal with ESPN to own the League Cup rights, but they're only showing 2 games, why can't you then pay like you pay for a boxing match?
Yeah.
Again, I'm going to moan. Yeah, I'm going to moan again about this. There's so much wrong with the quality of these deals we keep doing, where they're just that alone. As Bradford fans, I'd imagine Wrexham are losing their shit because the California, magic that's happening there. They'd probably sell 1,000 match passes to that game they're playing. So again, I don't understand why we haven't got that as an option. It just beggars belief to me. I don't know. We have to get our act together.
Yeah, because I'd sure pay money for it. It's take my money.
You and a lot of other people.
I don't have anyone to give it. Right.
Yeah, well, that's the silly thing, isn't it? I saw at the weekend, there was, whether it was to do with Sky or not, that Liverpool and West Ham I watched, which was on at the same time as Spurs and Arsenal. How can you have a North London derby on as the early game, and then Newcastle as the later game? What are you doing? Anyway, that's the Premier League, but I'm angry enough about our footage and our coverage. Do you know what I mean? In the EFL, and God knows, people. I don't know if it's got any better. I haven't been in England for a while, so I don't watch the EFL highlight shows on the Saturday. But I can't imagine it's getting any better. The coverage, and I saw there were complaints about BBC the scores result thing to do with Dan Walker's being replaced by Alex Scott.
Okay,
and the ratings have dropped. I think from 800,000-900,000 to 400,000-500,000, and people are going on about the female thing. I actually don't. I just think it's the quality of, if I were someone, I'd go get Jeff Stelling.
Right.
Jeff Stelling was let go of Sky.
Yeah.
You know, he's brilliant at what he does. So forget about man or woman. If you're a show that's lost half its viewers, something's not quite right with what's going on with how you're putting the show together. So go and get one of the best, even if it's just for 2 years as a stopgap. But BBC wouldn't do that, you know what I mean, knowing them. But again, like you're thinking, just hire really good. Like I said to you, I love watching the Champions League on CBS with Kate Adu and Carragher and Thierry Henry. It's just, it works really well. You know, I'm not sure on the BT stuff, which is now called TNT, you know, but watching that, like, I really enjoy it. So what that shows is it doesn't matter if it's female, male, foreigners, domestic.
It's the quality of the product,
it's the quality of the product. And again, I just don't think we're putting it out there in enough places. So that's a bugbear of mine. It's going to continue.
Did you watch the London Derby?
I watched highlights of it because I watched the Liverpool game. You know, I'm always going to go. I'm always going to go with Liverpool, my club. So I watched the highlights afterwards. So obviously, it looked like a cracking game. Ange's doing his thing. Everyone's screaming for Arsenal. What did I say Arsenal needed to do in the summer? What did I say they needed to do?
Needed a striker,
right? I said in the summer, and Chelsea. I said two things. I said Chelsea and Arsenal, if they had any sense, go and write a check to Brentford and go. And this isn't about the sell on. This is about put the sell on to the side because that'll happen. Go and get Ivan Toney. Like, it's 4 months. Go and sign him, integrate him into your squad. You'll be training with you right now. Go and buy Ivan Toney. They go and spend 60, 70 million on a guy from Chelsea who couldn't hit a barn door. What are you doing? Jesus can't play. He won't play 35 games a season. We know that from his injury record. And he ain't going to score 25 plus league goals. If you want to challenge for a league title, you're going to need a prolific goal scorer in your team. Chelsea haven't got one. Arsenal haven't got one. You know, this title race is going to come down to, and Spurs don't have one, by the way. This title race, when it's all said and done, looking at it now, I said Liverpool are going to take 2 or 3 years with the reload in the midfield. The only thing that will stop them is injuries and defence. But if they can keep in there, 1 and 2 in the Premier League this year will be Liverpool and Man City. Man City will win. Liverpool will.
Yeah, the question is by how many, isn't it?
Liverpool will push. If Liverpool are busy in the cups, then it will be 10, 15 points to Man City. If Liverpool get bounced out of the cups and aren't doing well in the cups, then this could go all the way to the final 3 games of the season. Mark that in your cards. Put that down. All right, the great tipster here is usually wrong. Only joking. But I'm telling you now, Arsenal, Chelsea, even Spurs don't have a number 9 that can score 25 league goals, in my opinion.
Yeah, didn't I? I heard something this week about Chelsea have only scored 2 or 3 goals at home in 11. Or it's just some crazy stat.
They haven't had a prolific number 9 in years. I think that number 9 sure has been cursed. I understand they've got young strikers who are going to come good. I like a couple of them. Jackson, I quite like. There's a lot of heat now in Pochettino. I think it's too early for that, but they do need to start winning games now. You got to be beating the lower teams of the world. You know, I don't care how many new players you have, of the talent, the money that's been spent. You've got to be battering some of those teams now. Sure, Chelsea can't beat a Man City. They can't beat Liverpool. They might not beat an Arsenal, but they should be battering the teams from 10th to 20th in the Premier League. So that has to change quickly. But I tell you right now, they keep spending 100 million on midfielders and, you know, wide players and whatever else. Go and spend it on a number 9. Arsenal the same. You go and, you know, Kai Havertz or whatever else for 60, 70 million. What are you doing? Go and get a number 9. I don't care. You know, if you buy a 27-year-old Ivan Toney, you're getting 5 years the best of his career, and you're basically giving yourself probably a 50% more chance of competing for the title, because nobody is taking Man City down unless they get that prolific goal scorer. Nobody, in my opinion.
So talking about battering the lower clubs, poor Sheffield United took one from Newcastle.
They did.
And did you see that one?
I did watch that. I was working, but it was on in the background. I mean, you feel for these clubs. I don't think you can criticize anything the Sheffield United manager or the players are doing. The owner wanted to sell. He should have sold. It should have been done. What was he waiting for? What's he hanging on for? At the end of the day, he's not giving them a fighting chance. Yes, he can fire the manager. What good's that going to do? And anyone who goes in and takes that job is going to be taking a paycheck. So, you know, I thought the Archer signing was a great signing. I love that player. You know, I feel for Heckingbottom. I feel for the Sheffield United players. Yeah, they're the ones I feel most for. I don't feel for Luton. I don't feel for Burnley. Burnley have decided they're going to play a certain way, and that's their flag in the sand. If that comes off, brilliant. Vincent Kompany's a genius. If they go down playing the prettiest football in the league, well, I guess it doesn't pay off. And a lot of those investors who put money into the project are going, you know, do you stick or twist? I think Kompany's been an absolute breath of fresh air for Burnley, and it worked in the champ. But I think I haven't watched enough of the games to know, has it been close? has it come off? I guess the telling sign would be for a team like Burnley is how are they doing against their own teams in their leagues? When they play the Forest of the world, when they play the Evertons of the world, when they play those teams that are meant to be bottom 7-8 teams in the Premier League, in those mini leagues, is that working? But if you're setting up to play that way and you're going to get spanked by Man City, Liverpool, and Arsenal, then I'd call that naive and go, good managers, have a plan B, have a plan C. And you can't just be oblivious to it and just, hell for leather. So maybe company's going to grow up. I think he will. I still think they have an outside chance. Luton, I totally get what they were trying to do. That's securing the future of the club. That is new stadium. That's training ground. That's academy. Luton will be stacked with talent to come back up in the Championship. I don't like people belittling Luton or whatever else, because I firmly believe what they did was the right thing to do. They don't have one owner who's loaded. They don't have one set of people that have got.
If that was us and if that was you, we'd be doing the same thing.
We'd be doing exactly. Well, me and Barry would probably get carried away and probably break our transfer record. The one thing I would do, I would definitely, protect the 300 million money and make our training ground, our academy, all the things, the stadium, and make the experience for our fans pretty much free. Because you have that, you can do that in the Premier League, so you're selling out. But the one thing I probably would have done more than anything else, I probably would have spent 25 million over 5 years on the Never Never and bought one striker with that chance of scoring enough goals to stay in. So that's the only thing I would say. Any of the relegate the teams going up, you need a goal scorer. And Forrest got criticised for a lot of the recruitment last year, but the boy who's got 9 and 9, who's the ex-Liverpool kid, Hawaii or whatever his name is, I forget his name. He's given them a chance of staying in that league all the time. Because they've gone and bought somebody with goals. And what did we just say there about the top teams? You need somebody with goals. And you're going to ask me about Ange Ball. I love what he's done with Spurs, and they have a chance in the top 4, but it's the goals. Newcastle suddenly caught fire. They're starting to win again. They're in Europe. It'll be interesting to see how the squad handles it. But the one thing they have is goals. They've got, whether it's Callum Wilson, whether it's the 70 million pound striker that came off the bench on Saturday and scored, Isaac. I'm not sure Spurs have that. And Maddison can keep creating goals, and Sonny can maybe score. He got 20 a couple of seasons ago, but losing Harry Kane has turned out to be a good thing for them, but they're probably still lacking that prolific number 9.
And isn't that because it was talked about for a long time, was that deal? You always talk about having plan B, plan C, plan D ready for when you pull the trigger. Does it feel like they didn't have a backup plan if Harry Kane did leave, or the backup plan was we don't need a replacement for Harry Kane?
No, I think they would have liked to have signed a striker, but I just think it's really difficult sometimes. I think this summer it was tough in the striker market. We were in the same situation with Clark Harris, so you go down a younger route, you go down another plan. There was no nailed-on player you could, even at our level, spend $1 million, $1.5 million to go and get. And they either weren't available or there weren't enough of them. There's a real lack of strikers. And I think it's the same in the Premier League. Spurs could have gone foreign and got number 9, but I was thinking when Liverpool sell Salah, maybe go and get the Napoli boy. If you're getting 200 million, go and give Napoli 125 million. God knows how I pronounce his name, but the boy I'm talking about who scores all their goals. But, there's probably only 4 or 5 centre forwards in the world achievable or attainable, but you'd have to go and spend 100+ million on them. So it's tough. United went and bought a project, Hoyland or whatever the boy's name is, who got 1 and 5 in Italy. So they didn't buy a number 9 that's prolific. Man City went and got up the most prolific goal scorer in the world. They're just not, Liverpool have got Nunez, who I'm a massive fan of, and it drives me mad when Klopp doesn't play him, and you want to see him get a run of games, because I think Nunez could rival Haaland for goals in the Golden Boot. I do. I think with confidence he could be unplayable. So Liverpool are stacked in that department, but there are 5 or 6 clubs at the top of the Premier League who don't have the attacking capabilities to be prolific. So that's my opinion on that.
So when we go into the Championship, Huddersfield swapped Neil Warnock for Darren Moore. We talked about Neil Warnock last week.
Miss Neil.
Was Darren Moore a surprise that he was the replacement, or kind of what do you feel on that?
Yeah, probably. I'm not sure how to feel about that. I think Neil Warnock's a better manager than Darren Moore. I know the dressing room loved Neil Warnock, but obviously he'd said things in press conferences. Obviously got to the stage where it wasn't workable. The one thing I know from speaking in the summer to Neil Warnock and stuff, he had a very set budget that included transfer fees and wages. We did a lot of business with Huddersfield and a few players. And hearing about the stuff Darren Moore at Sheffield Wednesday, and obviously I would imagine him and his staff obviously aren't cheap. If that's true,
it's a little bit of he said, she said.
Yeah, he said, she said, whatever else. But Well, yeah, I'd probably come on the side where I actually believe the Sheffield Wednesday owner regards all that, because I've been on the other side of that with managers and staff and negotiations and whatever, and people suddenly get excitable because they've won a promotion and feel they're like, they're invincible and they can ask for what they want. So I don't know. Good luck to Huddersfield with that one. I'm not sure. Question mark for me. We'll see.
Yeah. Oh, and the team that seems to surprise right now is Southampton. I keep seeing their, difficult results so far.
Surprise.
A harder start maybe than they expected.
No surprise. I'm not shocked. I think when you bring a Russell Martin in, and this is a compliment to Russell Martin, you're basically sacrificing short-term stuff for long-term stuff. So you're basically saying, we're back in the project. He plays a certain way, and it's going to take a while to get there. The only thing I would say is maybe they could have done with getting some of the players he needed quicker, because it was always going to take time. I think it's going to get worse before it gets better. But when it gets better for Russell Martin and his players in Southampton, I think they could win 10, 12 games in a row. Because when it gets to the stage where the players completely buy into it and they completely understand what he's trying to do, they dominate games for fun. And unlike when he was at, say, Swansea or MK Dons, he has the attacking players to finish. We played as Swansea in the Championship, and I remember for 30 minutes we didn't touch the football. We were completely dominated and destroyed. But they were only 2-0 up. And they should have been 5, 6, 7 up. So the difference being when he gets that right at Southampton, they're going to win a lot of games. They're going to score a lot of goals. And if I were the Southampton fans, bite your lip, put your seatbelt on, wait a little bit longer. And I honestly think they could go on a run that would just go bang. And that's something to look out for. That Championship League, yes, Leicester, Leeds, they're all doing really well. Ipswich, phenomenal. But any team can win 10, 12 games in a row. They suddenly find themselves there. And knowing Southampton, Rasmus, Russell, they will have more plans to do more business in January, without a doubt. And, I think their biggest thing this summer was shipping out enough players to bring in 150, 200 million, clear the decks, put themselves in a good position financially. Southampton will be fine, in my opinion.
So Ipswich, you spoke all summer about Ipswich being potential for a double promotion.
Yeah.
And they've had a really fantastic start to the season. So what was it about them that led you to believe that they would be strong?
Few things.
One into the Championship.
Size of the club, because I think a club like that, like I've always said to you, when you catch on fire, you're suddenly a big club. Nobody should look at Ipswich being in the top 3 of the Championship and go, oh my God, they're overachieving. Are you joking me? They're a big club. Massive crowds, big club, big history, good owners, putting money in. Ashton knows what he's doing, backing the manager, and spending millions on our player. A manager who's got a certain way he wants to play, dominated League One, should have won the league. If Plymouth hadn't been on fire, Ipswich would have won the league. That was a one-off, the Plymouth thing where they caught fire. A young manager whose players believe in what he's doing, a good group. Where would I say maybe they need to add in January, maybe in the striking department, even though they're scoring goals, because obviously in the back half of the season is when it matters. But they're strong all over the pitch. I really fancy Ipswich. Do they go up this season? I bloody hope so, because it does us well. They're in one of the toughest championships for years. They're playing a Leicester revitalised. They're playing a Leeds revitalised. They're playing, obviously, a Southampton that's going to be revitalised. There's a lot of other big clubs in there. But as Luton showed last year, don't write anybody off. And Ipswich are a far bigger club than Luton. So not surprised at all. And the other thing that you've got there at Ipswich is you've got calmness. So even if they lost 2 or 3 or 4 games in a row, nobody's going to panic. They were having some stuttery runs last year when they were expected to be winning League One. And I think they were pretty calm behind the scenes. So, no, I think Ipswich are locked and loaded and very strong. And I won't be shocked if they're still in the hunt. 5, 6 games to go. Definitely a playoff team.
Now, you mentioned, obviously Jack Taylor going to Ipswich in the summer. Do you keep tabs on players once you've sold them?
Of course, I have to for appearances, to make sure that if they go up, we get that big payment. Same with Schmoddix, who's flying at Blackburn.
Yeah, he's got the couple, didn't he?
Absolutely. If they end up selling him for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 million, we have a nice chunk of that too. So you always keep, but not only that, because I'm fond of those players. Do you know what I mean? So I love to see Sammy doing well, but so many people wrote him off, including maybe some at our place, that he wasn't good enough for the Championship. So, I'm delighted for him. I think, he's done exceptional. I think he's been like value for money for Blackburn. So, and I think they have an outside chance, even though maybe their manager wasn't fully backed. They seem to score goals. So don't be shocked by that one.
So how's Jack Taylor been playing then? How has he started the season?
I think he found it tough at the start getting in, because the manager went with last season's team. I think he got in there with some international players being away internationally. He got a chance. I'm not sure he's played his best, But the one thing I know about Jack Taylor is he's a November to May player as opposed to an August to November player.
Mhm.
So I think Ipswich will see his best at the right time. And, it won't be long before he's running all over midfields in the Championship and scoring goals for fun. So
now, is that because of the there's some players who just perform better in that part. They don't start the season well for whatever reason, or is it more new club, new circumstance, new surroundings?
I think it'd be a new club, young family, big move,
Yeah.
big expectations. At the end of the day, he's a quality player. And also maybe, I know under McCann he didn't play his best football, was granted a certain thing he wanted his midfielders to do. And when Darren came back in the building, he was suddenly running midfields in League One and scoring goals for fun. So because suddenly he knows exactly where he's meant to be instead of a scattergun approach in midfield. So, to get the best out of Jack Taylor, I think we all know what he is. Do you know what I mean? And he's a box-to-box midfielder. And you have to, take the brakes off and take the chains off and let him get at it, And he's just going to be a massive asset to Ipswich. So I would expect to see his best football from January to the summer for them, if I'm honest.
Yeah. Now, I want to drop all the way down to the National League and Southend. So we've had questions actually about two clubs, one National League, one National League North now in Scunthorpe. What's going on in both those clubs? So at Southend, they are bottom of the National League. That's really because of a points deduction. They've actually got some points on the board that otherwise would have them sitting fairly handily. But they were almost wound up. I think they've had 17 petitions for winding up. And the judge said the last time if they weren't a community asset, basically he'd have liquidated them. How do you feel about, how do clubs where the ownership is either struggling to fund or doesn't have the desire to fund, what can the fans do about it? How can the fans kind of help as much as you can, stumble along until you get a change of ownership, or to make the football club look as attractive as possible to a prospective new owner?
It's a famous club. I'm not quite sure. I don't know Ron Martin personally. I don't know what is. They've talked for years about the stadium plans and this, that, whatever else. So I guess the question is, how can you get them in a room and ask them, what do you want to fuck off? Yeah. What do you want? What's your number? What's your figure? Realistically, what's your figure? What will it take to get you gone? So I don't know the answers. I don't know if the supporters groups have done that. I don't know if there's anyone wealthy enough around. So then I do know this, that there's enough Americans falling in love with the Wrexham thing, and the whole Ted Lasso thing, that, if somebody can actually put together what he wants and get it to somebody in America, will buy it. Now, unless he wants something stupid like 10 or 15 or 20 million, but there's got to be a deal that can be done. Maybe the non-league, even the EFL, step in here because they're a big member of what was the EFL before they got relegated, and go, look, you need to go. This isn't right. So we're going to give you a time limit. Basically, there's got to be something put in place about this, because it's not right for the fans. You don't like seeing it. So I don't know the answer to it, because I don't know enough about it. I see all the articles like you do about the writs, the payments made last minute and money owed and whatever else. So you feel for their staff and players. We had them on recently about one of our players. It was like they had two players on the bench. But you're always like, well, if you send a player there, how's that going to work out? So I don't know enough about the chaos there. I know some of the fans have emailed for me to talk about it. I don't like talking about clubs I haven't got enough knowledge of or information on, so it'd be good to know more.
How you talked about there's buyers in the market, obviously looking for the clubs at the right price. They're not throwing the money around.
Yeah.
How do the people who want to buy a football club, how do they approach the market? The market being
there's a few there's brokers. There's brokers.
Yeah.
You can view it through intermediates. You go direct to a club. I mean, you need to be Stevie Wonder not to see that they're available for sale. So if you're an American, who's got an interest in buying in England, you'd have already scoured all the different newspapers and the online things and looked at whatever and said, oh, Southend have got problems. Let me try and contact the owner of that club. So there will be a way. And then you would obviously approach them directly and go, look, send me a prospectus. What do you want? What are the debts? What's the deal? And you start trying to do a deal. So there is a way, and there are people actively out there. Now, my broker who did my deal not so long ago, he does loads of deals for clubs.
Yeah.
So, he's doing 3 deals at the moment in the Football League, some clubs that would surprise people. So, it's just a moving market, but it's not impossible to find out. But there's no official transfer market for clubs for sale.
Right.
You got to do your digging around, until you find the right opportunities, but they're out there.
And going to Scunthorpe, so Scunthorpe now in National League North, and obviously there's a lot of commotion around the.
Were those texts real? Were those texts that were released real?
I have no idea because they they were almost too incendiary to be real.
So I don't know. If he sent those texts that were real, well, one, I'd say he's a fucking gobshite for putting that stuff out there. So, two, I've read all the stuff online about name changes, about previous whatever. I don't know enough. I'm not an investigative journalist. Jimmy Dean, who's managed Peterborough Sports, is there. He's obviously doing a great job. I'm sure he's under a lot of pressure. I know Peter Swan, the previous owner. I can see all the stadium issue. It's a big club. We fought with that club for promotion for years. I mean,
in League One.
Yeah. No, we had battles all the time with them. I mean, playoffs, not the playoffs, but trying to get to the playoffs, trying to win promotion. I find it bizarre, right down to the stadium issue, to the current owner. I don't know the laws of the National League, like the EFL, or who steps in or what steps in. Are the staff being paid? I presume they are, otherwise that would have come out. So I don't know enough about it. Equally, I can't say, did he send that text that they're banning fans or something came up as well?
That's what I wanted to bring up. Yeah, they're banning the fans that have different opinions.
I hate that because, you got your DMAC out crowd. At the end of the day, I'm happy for them to sit to my left. So, unless you're overstepping, unless those people are insulting your family, unless those people are threatening you physically, it's the only way you would ever ban somebody. So I don't care if there's a fraction of our fan base doesn't like me. It's not a popularity contest. All I'd ever say to them is, if you want to meet, if you want to talk, great, we'll talk it through. If you just want to basically hate my guts online and talk about wanting me out, but you never really actually want to sit and talk or explain why you feel that way, or you don't know all the facts, that's different. But I can't ban them. I mean, at the end of the day, I'll take their money like everyone else. The ones who don't pay any money, who are part of that, they're the ones who really piss me off. And we did a deep dive on some of them. And it was something like 60% of the small little group who were DMAC'd out at one point over the last 2 years didn't spend a fucking pound note with our football club. It was Chris or somebody had said to me, don't give any of that oxygen. They don't spend any fucking money. They don't move the needle. There they are out there giving it the big one, but they're not putting their money where their mouth
not
is.
Representative of your paying fan base.
No, a load of bullshit. So who knows?
Well, we have a couple of questions, but one I think we covered. I'm just going to make a reference because Andrew was asking about data and the importance of data in player identification.
Yep.
What do you see as key data points? We already really talked about that. What data is meaningless? We talked possession. We talked passes a little bit. Anything else out there that is window dressing?
So a couple of things I do, and I shouldn't really reveal all this for strikers, but what I tend to do is I obviously have my injury thing where you look at the last 4 years and work out an average. So a player, how many games they play on average. If a player plays less than 25 games on average, they're made of glass. And that's probably not going to necessarily improve if over the age of 23. If before the age of 23, that could be growing pains. So you have to be careful with that one. The other one I like to look at is how many times an attacking player is substituted and when are they substituted. So if the average substitution comes before the 65th, 70th minute, they're kind of like milky. They're brilliant, they're crap, they're brilliant, they're crap. Otherwise, why aren't they playing, to the 80th minute, the 85th minute? If lots of them are subbed after the 75th minute, that could be because they run 10, 11, 12 clicks a game. The game is based on pace. And obviously they can't play 90 all the time and you're resting your best player. So little things like that I look at, their disciplinary record, data that's not data is watching interviews with them, how they handle themselves, how they are. And then one of the most important things for my scouts is, what do they like at warming up? Do they take the piss? Are they yapping to their friends? Are they giving it the big one, or are they actual professionals and actually dig in and do their job? There's some of the big things, you look for when you're out there. The obvious data is obviously your goals, your assists if it's an attacking player. But another one would be the SMODIC data. I would always say, how many kilometers a game do they run? And by the way, how many of those were run when they lost the game? Did they stop running? Did they give up? So there are all those little things. I've got, ticking boxes when we're recruiting players. It's really important. So it's fascinating, really. I said that statistics can be a window to the soul. They can be the opposite of that as well, and sometimes completely screw you, where you think you've got it right, but it's completely the opposite. And I could give examples, we will in the future.
All right, last question. Darren, I think this was on email, and this is going back to just remembering the Northampton game where the Northampton players, hooked one in from, 40 yards, and did it go in? Did it not go in? His question is it time for goal line technology to be rolled out across the EFL?
Yes, 100%. EFL should come up with a pot of money. do a sponsorship deal. It should be, the EFL should be as one on that. So absolutely, there should be goal line technology throughout, and it should be cheaper by now. When it first came out, it was something like 250 grand. Right now, with technology, when you used to buy computers that were 50 grand back in the day, and you can now buy a computer for 500 quid, we should have goal line technology, even if it costs clubs 20 grand each or whatever. We should have that technology. Absolutely, 100% yes. Yes.
Yeah, well, if you've got 72 stadiums now going and buying all at the same time as well, there should be a deal.
It should be a deal. And even if a company says it's 50 grand, but we'll let you pay it over 3 years, it should be in place. And these are the things, again, I would push the EFL on certain things. Like, we have to make changes. We have to be with it. You know, we're dinosaurs here. Some of the stuff that we're doing, we're like so behind it. It's wrong. You know, we're one of the biggest leagues in the world. So universally, that should be across the board. That was a goal, by the way, for Northampton. But the point is, you know, it made me feel better at the time with a ref with his watch going. You know what I mean? So, you know, instead of relying on the linesman who's guessing from 6 yards away, he took the right guess. But we know for a fact it is what it is. So, yeah, I am 100% for that. So before we go, talk about the awards.
Yeah, so the Football Content Awards, we asked for your nominations to be shortlisted. It's always a two-step process. We made the final shortlist, and there's a lot of other club podcasts in the running. So we would just ask if you go to footballcontentawards.com/voting. That's footballcontentawards.com/voting. Find the best podcast section for Football League, and there's a drop-down menu that has Hard Truth.
Now listen,
let's get that goal. We've had
bronze and silver, and we need the posh fans and the bantam fans, because we know, obviously, you know, you're 20,000 season ticket holders. So come on, let's get the posh and Bradford fans out in force, and any other football fans, even if you're a Derby fan and you love listening to this, you know, spread the wealth, you know, spread the happiness. You know, I always talk like as honestly as I can about clubs. Sometimes you won't like what I say, but you know, it's always going to be the hard truth no matter what. And sometimes we don't always like what we don't hear what we want, but we have to hear it. So we appreciate you getting us there. Now get us over the finish line. It's not for me. It's for the Phils, the Henry, everyone behind the scenes. Do you know what I mean? Like, we need them. We got Rob, who does a lot of work on all the, you know, the marketing stuff. And it'd be great for those guys to get up on stage and actually get gold. So fuck Darragh and Anthony. Do it for those guys.
We'll win something at Anfield.
Yes.
I think Anfield is where the presentation
is. Shit, I might have to fly over myself for that. I'm only joking. So, no, I wouldn't steal anyone's thunder. So, yeah, let's do this, all right? All good.
So that's footballcontentawards.com/voting, and that would be much appreciated.
Perfect.
So until the next time, thank you as always for listening in, and we'll be back again soon.
Brilliant.
All right, take care, everybody.
Take care, guys.